So coming into this week's episode of Astra Lost in Space, this was probably the best coming into an episode after a cliffhanger that we've seen. The whole gun situation with Ugar was definitely a close second, but I think most of us assumed that the trigger wasn't going to get pulled. This, however, was a new face. We didn't know what she was going to bring to this cast, so I think the idea of Paulina and just what she was going to do to this episode and just the future of the story had me incredibly gripped, and I think they definitely delivered on that. But before we jump into all that crazy content, I want to make a quick mention to the end of this episode. Hell, they didn't even leave us really on a cliffhanger. It technically is one, but they at least gave us the information between Kittery and her sister. We start getting the question of maybe there is more than just them being adoptive sisters, and then it's like, okay, they share the same blood. What if her mother just actually kept her other child a secret? That seems likely, and then by the end of the episode we get the confirmation that they're the same person, i.e., doing cloning. So it's now the question of, did her mother join in on this planned almost assassination mission, you could call it, to maybe get rid of the evidence of what she's done? Maybe she wanted to hide her tracks. Hell, maybe she's Mother of the Year, we just don't even know it. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this knowledge, because only a couple of people know as of right now. And would someone like Zach want to expose this truth, or would he want to keep it to himself? But I also have to say, even with all the bombshells, all the serious content, this had the most wholesome and hilarious scene to date, I honestly think, within this show. The whole idea that Kittery likes Zach, everyone knew that. Everyone knew there was some butterflies going on in her stomach. But Zach? After this episode, he might be my favorite character, I have to say. This man is almost deadpan. You can't really tell what's going on. You can tell he's a good guy, but you can't understand what's really deep down inside him, what he's truly feeling. And the fact that we have a girl who wants to be a doctor, but at the same time there's a dream that drives her even more, and it's a very simple one. She wants to marry her childhood friend, but she believes that isn't what he would want. And I love how they build it up to almost be like this cliche anime scene where she would run off and then maybe he would come and get her. They'd hold hands, they'd bond romantically. You've seen this type of scene done before. You don't even have to look at anime. It's a very classic teen melodrama sequence, and it usually works because it's actually a pretty decent formula overall. But this man is just like, I thought we were already getting married. If that isn't hilarious, honestly, point to a better scene in this show that's more funny than this. He's the type of person that he just thought back when we were kids, we agreed to it, and he doesn't understand that most people don't keep their childhood promises, that if they say they're going to marry someone or be together forever, it's just childhood nonsense, and some people are going to grow up and want that childhood nonsense to be real, and then you'll have the rare occasion when someone like Zach is like, no, I actually believe, I thought we were getting married. And then by the end of that sequence, it's just everyone agrees, yep, they're getting married. It was so anime, and I absolutely ate it all up. It was just, I paused for a couple of minutes, and I was like, this is why I love this series. It has so much serious elements to it, but then it has this ridiculous goofy side, but that goofy side is what's kept them alive. In this episode, Paulina actually says, like, their atmosphere had to have kept them alive. The fact that they're lost in space, the fact that they're so young and they don't really have experience doing something like this, as she came from a ship that actually was space exploration, trying to find planets that humans and things like that could live on, they don't have that experience. But that comfy atmosphere is what's fueled them. So even though it is anime and some of these scenes are designed just to be anime and cute and fun, that atmosphere actually has served a really important plot piece to actually keep them alive. And it also just allows for the characters to decompress and act a little more their age so they don't go completely insane. And hell, we get developments where, holy shit, two of our characters, if they get back home, they're gonna be man and wife, and I really like that. It was just such a cute and comfy scene overall, and it was just like, this is why I love this show. It can be serious, but goddamn can it be sweet and adorable, or just absolutely goofy when it wants to be. This episode, we get a lot of information surrounding the ship that we stumbled upon, and it was actually interesting. I was expecting it to be very closely related to their own predicament, where maybe the parents or maybe some form of organization sent them out as almost an assassination mission, but then to see that it was simply just them actually, this was their job, they were trying to find planets and they just got caught up in a bad situation, only one survived, and instead of giving up on her own life, she waited for help, and 12 years later, help arrived, just not in the form that she was thinking. And what was most interesting about this entire situation was not only are they so different with their predicament, you have kids who seemingly were tossed into space willingly, or it was just an unfortunate circumstance, but they both had similar ships, and that's what's super interesting. There's something connecting them. The whole idea that they ended up on the same part of the planet isn't ridiculous, because there was only one ring or one section of their planet that was actually not going to kill them, so them actually landing together in a proximity it's to be expected, but the ship is the interesting element here. But what's even more crazy is this girl seemingly, just based on her reactions, based on just it being 12 years and her acting like something isn't over, it seems like for whatever was happening, what if the world was supposed to end 12 years ago? Because they were looking for other planets. They were looking for places that humans could live because probably there was going to be a war or something like that, or a country was going to do some bad things, and maybe planet Earth wasn't going to be able to be lived on anymore. And I think that's kind of the direction, because her reaction, the fact that it's 12 years from now and they come from Earth, like that blew her mind and almost seemed like a sense of relief. So it's going to be interesting to see what was her reason, because I do think that's a pretty likely scenario that Earth was going to be destroyed and that's why they were searching for other planets that they could live on. However, it just seems like, why did that not happen? And does that connect to our main plot of why these kids ended up in their current situation? And that's going to be pretty interesting. But I do enjoy having an adult in the cast, especially because this is someone who's been alone for so long. Not only just that she's been sleeping for 12 years, she lost everyone she cared for. And the idea that you have this group of kids who, most of the time, someone her age would look at them and probably had to lead them, because how are they going to get out of this? And then you just see this comfy atmosphere, and even though this is so much for her, you got a sense of relief that for the first time in a very long time, she could feel safe. Obviously, she freaks out when she learns their ship is broken, but of course, when you have similar ships, you're going to repair it. I actually thought, though, the way they repaired it was actually interesting. I thought it wasn't going to be like a snap in a piece situation. I actually thought it was going to be like them having to, get their hands dirty, maybe like rip out some parts here, rip out some parts here, kind of swap it out. But the idea that their ships come into 3 spots and you can just take the one good spot from one ship and snap it onto the other, I just think that's so cool. It's definitely a lucky coincidence, but at the same time, there's got to be a bit more to it. Why do they have the same ships that were from 12 years ago? It's gonna be very fascinating, to say the least. But this show, it just feels so satisfying. That's probably the best word to describe Astra Lost in Space. Satisfying. It's a show that has elements that you're typically used to with a cast of this age that used to be high school students, things like that. But the way they explore it, there's this sense of threat, danger. At any moment you step and then you see these giant things come from the ground and you could easily get imploded, and holy shit, that would have just shook the cast insanely. But then you have these scenes where you can have ridiculous marriage talks and you're like, holy shit, they actually are gonna get married someday. I just love how it blends so much that anime is known for, but at the same time it almost feels like some of the classic Western space exploration movies. And I love that. It has this really real space feel to it that just makes it feel so unique, especially for TV production for space exploration, because you really don't get too many these days, and when you do, most of them aren't anything to write home about. I'm sure some people are going to talk about Kanta and how he did his kind of like jumping maneuver to get the dog tags and say that was a stupid thing, but we know who he is in terms of his physical abilities. It's not like he's just some dumbass who's just like, I'm going to put my life in danger. It honestly felt like he could do that. It's just one of those things that, yes, he was doing it to help her ease her mind because she wanted something to remember her fallen comrades by, but at the same time, it's something that, like, yes, he could have easily got damaged by these like plant-based whips, but at the same time, I personally wasn't like, okay, this is just so stupid he didn't value his life. I really felt like, you know what type of a person is, you knew how he grew up, he's an athlete, he could do this. If anyone could do it, he could do it. It'd be different if like Kittery or someone else was trying to do it. It'd be like, okay, this is really ridiculous, but he has the strength to do so. It's not like he's just constantly not valuing his life. He's doing things to help people, and that could be perceived as cliche, but I just feel like the way the cast bounce off one another and how they complement one another, they bring out both the strengths and weaknesses, and those weaknesses can be kind of fixed with just another personality. And I like how all of them trusted in Kanta to be able to do this. It just feels like it knows what it's doing. We're 2/3 of the way through this story, and it feels like we're getting closer and closer to the truth, but at the same time, there's so much we don't understand about what's truly happening. We got a new character who had her own mission and why she was fleeing from Earth and looking for other planets. We have a mystery of why the hell are 2 sisters being kept apart in terms of not thinking they're related to then just, holy shit, they are actually the same person, most likely with cloning. And then you have, why were they sent in the first place? Was this actually just a natural phenomenon where they just got randomly sucked in? But why was that ship there? Why was that ship waiting for them? Is this all an experiment? It's like, there's so many answers that when they reach Earth, when they set foot, what's going to happen? Are their guns going to be drawn to them? Are there going to be welcoming hands ready to hug them? What is actually happening? And that's something I don't recall seeing in quite some time. There's plenty of shows that have like a mystery element and there's constantly questions and then answers and then more questions and you get answers, but there's something about the development of just a simple pathway home. They got to visit 5 or 7 planets and then they reach home, but there's so much we don't know, and as we don't know, we also are growing with these characters. So even before they reach home, you feel like we've grown with them, and even if we don't get those answers, it's almost like as long as they don't get a bullet in their head, it feels like a satisfying payoff overall. And Astra just knows what it's doing, between the music just really bringing out emotional atmospheres to just the expressive animation, both with the ridiculous anime scenes and more heart-throbbing ones. It feels like Astra Lost in Space, especially with episodes like these, coming into such an amazing cliffhanger to then just like, oh, this wasn't what we were expecting with the cliffhanger, to then even more interesting questions surrounding this new character, and then you get all the classic banter that we've known over the past 8 weeks. It just feels like Astra Lost in Space is a solid series overall. That's emotionally gripping, it's hilarious, and it's anime all at the same time. But most importantly, it's serious when it has to be, and those comedic elements we see pop up at multiple points through an episode never takes away from the serious elements, because they don't bring up those comedic moments within the serious, which a lot of anime honestly do that mistake, where they're like, okay, we're all serious, and then goofy anime face. It's like, no, we don't do that. We save it for when characters are drinking tea and eating biscuits, not when a giant plant-like monster is about to kill them. And that's what I like about Astra. It does a lot of anime tropes, but they do those anime tropes very elegantly, and they do it correctly, and not many anime can say that. I thought this was an excellent episode. Gripping, and after the credits there, hell, they showed the credits as you got dialogue. That's how you know things are getting serious. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for episode 9 next week. But what did everyone think of this week's episode of Astra Lost in Space? You love it, you hate it, your favorite moment, where you think next week is going to go? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video though, be sure to drop a like, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new. So until next time everyone, please take care, have a good one.